I'm Teisha Bader, and in the news, the continuing unresolved issue of an egalitarian, pluralistic prayer section at Jerusalem's Western Wall. Back in January of 2016, a historic compromise was reached between non-ultra-Orthodox streams of Judaism and the Israeli government for a section at the holy site, which would allow men and women to pray together and allow anyone from any stream of Judaism to worship in accordance to their tradition. But that agreement has yet to be implemented. And in June of this year, the government suspended the agreement. This week, leaders of Diaspora Jewry are in Israel for the Jewish Agency Board of Governors meetings, and the non-implementation of the Kotel compromise is one of their main issues of concern. David Breakstone is deputy chairman of the Jewish Agency, serving directly under Chairman Natan Sharansky. And David joins us now over the phone from Israel to talk about the Kotel issue. And David, thank you so much. I know it's been a very long day of meetings and days of meetings, so we truly appreciate your time tonight.
My pleasure. I know it's an important topic for Jews everywhere, and I'm pleased to be able to share some observations and insights with you.
Wonderful. So before we get to the status of what's happening today, just give us a little bit of a reminder as far as the timeline of starting with the compromise that was reached in January of 2016, almost 2 years ago now. If you can just take us back and remind us of what's been going on.
Okay, actually, I think if we're talking timeline, it's important to go back a full 4 years when the negotiations for reaching a solution to the prayer issue at the Western Wall, when the negotiations really first began. At that time, Prime Minister Netanyahu approached Natan Sharansky, the chairman of the Jewish Agency, and asked him to orchestrate negotiations that would bring about a resolution. The negotiations went on for a period of 3.5 years or so, fairly secret, and it took that long to reach a compromise regarding the issue. It was a compromise that all sides agreed to. No compromise is perfect. Every side had to give things up. But indeed, it was a compromise, as you said in your introductory remarks, an historic one, that was ratified by the entire government of Benjamin Netanyahu. Crucial to that agreement was that there would not only be access at the Western Wall to those who wanted to pray as they wished, but that it would be part of, and this was in Prime Minister Netanyahu's own words, one wall for one people. Crucial to that was that there would be one entrance area to the entire Western Wall, and as well as full visibility of the different areas for prayer, so that somebody who came along and wanted to pray at the Western Wall would not have to seek out a place over at the side, at the back of the bus, so to speak, where he or she could pray, but would come into the Western Wall Plaza and see that there was a place for men, a place for women, and a place for mixed davening, and as you said, that would allow people to daven, to pray in accordance with their own tradition. We've had access physically to a place to pray at part of the Western Wall, Robinson's Arch. We've had that for close to 30 years already. The place has not been developed physically as it might have been. We didn't have access to it as freely as we would have wanted. But that could easily have been worked out on its own, independent of any other agreement. What was at stake here in this agreement was essentially not just solving the practical matter of where we would be able to pray, but also the symbolic significance. This is a year in which we are celebrating 50 years of the reunification of Jerusalem. There's nothing that symbolizes that more than the Western Wall. And the idea was that this reunification of Jerusalem would also signify or symbolize the unity of the Jewish people. And it's these elements of the agreement that have not been implemented that are, at this point, so painful for Jews all over the world, in particular for Jews of the Reform and Conservative denominations. But I want to add as well that we shouldn't forget that those who really put this issue at the forefront of consciousness of world Jewry were the women of the wall, for whom this is also a crucial issue, and I wouldn't want them to be left out. Those are women who want to be able to daven essentially in an Orthodox fashion as in a women's minyan, and they too at this point have no place to pray with a sense of equality.
So yesterday, as we reported actually on the JBS News Update, Israel's Minister of Regional Cooperation, Tzachi Hanegbi, who has kind of been assigned by the Prime Minister to work on this compromise, he led a tour of Robinson's Arch, which you just spoke of, the designated pluralistic site. And I think we have a photo of some of the people on that tour, including you and Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky. There were also a number of visiting Jewish leaders here for the Board of Governors. Tell us about that tour yesterday and the comments that Minister Hanegbi made and what impression you left the experience with as far as the future of this issue.
Okay. First of all, it was a very important meeting, I believe, with Minister Hanegbi. He came with a tremendous amount of goodwill, which I believe everybody there was appreciative of. But in the words of Rabbi Rick Jacobs, who responded to his comments, he came with a lot of goodwill and a lot of crumbs. Those aren't my words, those are his words. But the feeling was that the government is prepared to invest a huge amount, a relatively large amount of money in fixing up the area physically so that it will be a very attractive area. But at the same time, Minister Hanegbi stated explicitly, you will not have a single entrance here for everyone. That, for us, as I said, for the Jewish Agency that was very involved in brokering the arrangement for the streams as well. That was a critical part of the agreement. As I said, we had compromised on many other areas, but that was fundamental to what the agreement was about, as well as full visibility of the area. I would say we're not interested in having a five-star hotel built for us in a little corner someplace where we and others don't have easy access to it. The symbolic nature, again, of the wall is such that common entrance and the clear visibility and the sense really, again, of one wall for one people is really crucial to what our understanding of, not just our understanding, and Minister Hanegbi doesn't deny for a moment that was indeed an integral part of the agreement. But he stated very clearly and explicitly that we are not going to be able to deliver on. Therefore, I think the meeting with him, the tour with him was very important because it stated very clearly where things stood, and we know now what we are up against. There was some debate, but the discussions have not taken place. As you said before, it was on June 25th that the agreement was frozen. There was supposed to be a period of 6 months in which things would be resolved, and negotiations, discussions, dialogue between the various parties to the original agreement have not been initiated at this point. 4 months have gone by, and there hasn't been any effort to initiate a restart of the discussion. Minister Hanegbi also said that he understood well that we might be reluctant to engage in dialogue. We spent 3.5 years dialoguing and nothing and reached agreement and they weren't honored, what guarantees do we have that if we again enter into negotiations in good faith, that the final agreement will be honored? And his answer was, I can't give you any guarantee at this point. I understand your feeling that a deal is a deal. I understand it, and I believe he really does. I'm not trying to put him into a more difficult spot. He understands that the credibility of the government in this regard, or the reliability or the ability of the government to deliver on its promises at this point is suspect. Nevertheless, those of us at the site with him on the tour made it absolutely clear that we were ready to enter again into dialogue. I don't want to say negotiations at this point, but certainly we're very interested, ready, eager to enter into dialogue about this matter.
So I just want to explain a little more for people who have never perhaps been to the Western Wall, the point you're making about the one entrance and how it is today. So today, if somebody comes to the Western Wall, there is one entrance for the main section, which is divided into the men and women's section, and then to get to Robinson's Arch, you have to go a completely different way. And your point is that it would be lovely to have a nicer looking section, Robinson's Arch, which we have a few pictures actually. It looks okay, but it could certainly be nicer looking. And those cosmetic changes are what Hanegbi is saying is not a problem. What is a problem and what is being asked for and what was agreed to in the compromise is this one entranceway so that everybody coming to the wall has a choice of where they want to go. And as you said, one wall for one people. And on the other side, the ultra-Orthodox who are controlling basically the Western Wall feel that if they allow for that one entranceway, and correct me if I'm wrong, they feel that if they allow for one entranceway, they are giving recognition to non-ultra-Orthodox streams of Judaism. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely correct. That indeed was what the issue has boiled down to. It never really was only about access to the Kotel. It was always for some people. I don't want to speak for everybody, either individually or groups, but there have always been two issues involved. One is, as I said, the practical possibility for those who wanted to be able to pray at the wall in their own style or at a place alongside the wall, and the recognition of the legitimacy of the different streams of Judaism. And I believe it was the Haredim who had originally voted in favor of this agreement with this government decision, who had passed it. They withdrew their support and demanded that it not be implemented when elements in that camp began to see this as the beginning of official recognition of the different streams of Judaism in Israel. For them, that is an intolerable situation.
Now,
Dave, we're not expecting the Haredim to welcome us. We would like it, but we're not expecting it. But we do expect of the government of Israel, which we refer to as the nation state of the Jewish people, the nation state of the entire Jewish people, we expect the government to extend that legitimacy and not to declare for those Jews living in Israel or those Jews living around the world to give them the sense that they are second-class Jews, that they don't have full rights here. And of course, the Kotel is only one small aspect of that. It extends into many other areas as well.
So one of those other areas is the conversion bill, which you mentioned just before we came on to do the program, that there was discussion of that bill in the Knesset. Was that today in Jerusalem? Was that yesterday? Tell us what's going on with that.
Okay, there was a meeting today with the Speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein. It was a closed meeting, so I won't go into details of what was said there. But what I can tell you is that, again, on June 25th, there was legislation put forward that would give an absolute exclusive monopoly to the ultra-Orthodox, to the chief rabbinate, which is in the hands of the ultra-Orthodox, to oversee all conversions in Israel. That would actually roll back progress that had been made and Supreme Court decisions that had been honored that allow a very complicated issue, because who is a Jew in Israel is divided into three areas, which I'll try to state very simply. I hope listeners will be able to follow it. One is who has the right to make Aliyah, who has the right to Israeli citizenship. The law of return states that all Jews have that right. The question, of course, if you say all Jews, is who is a Jew. So one issue is Aliyah and the law of return. One issue is registration in Israel's population registry. The Minister of the Interior has a population registry in which, alongside every name, it's written down what the person's nationality is, so to speak. For Jews, the nationality is written down as Jewish. And the third area is the right to get married. The only marriages that are permitted in Israel are religious marriages. It's Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. There is no civil marriage. So the only way you can get married is through one of the three religions. And if you're not Jewish, according to the chief rabbinate, then you have no way of getting married in Israel, assuming you're not a Christian or a Muslim. So up until now, and right now as well, those who convert by a Reform or Conservative or private Orthodox court have the right to be inscribed in the population registry as Jewish. The bill that was put forward in June would deny that right. It would say the only conversion that counts for inclusion in the population registry is an Orthodox conversion conducted by the chief rabbinate. That also created an absolute uproar, not just among the Reform and the Conservative, but also among the more modern Orthodox, who are much more lenient. I don't want to say they take their orthodoxy extremely seriously, but their interpretation of halakha is different than that of the chief rabbinate. They also are up in arms about this, so it's not just a sectarian issue. And that was also put on as part of the compromise reached in June, is that legislation would be frozen for 6 months. In the meantime, a committee would be established to try to find a resolution to that issue as well. On August 16th, Prime Minister Netanyahu appointed a man by the name of Moshe Nissim, who was a minister in the government in the past, to try to work through that problem. Again, up to this point, no dialogue, no negotiations, no outreach has begun between the different parties to this conflict as well. Natan Sharansky, Mr. Sharansky, the chairman of the Jewish Agency, is working on this now with Moshe Nissim. I'm hopeful that process will begin, but we only have technically until the end of December for some resolution to be reached. There are court cases pending with Israel's Supreme Court that were put forward by the non-Orthodox movements. Those court cases were also suspended. The court would prefer not to have to interfere here if compromises can be reached. And we would be hopeful that something would happen. So at this point, there is no concrete indication that any progress has yet been made. but we are eager and anxious for that process to move ahead in a very rapid and constructive way.
David, tell me, what do you say to people either living in Israel or outside of Israel who say to you, look, David, Israel has so many problems. You know, just yesterday, the IDF destroyed a terror tunnel that was built from Gaza, infiltrating into Israel with the intention of carrying out abductions of either Israeli soldiers or civilians. You know, these problems with the Kotel or worship or conversion, maybe they're not that important. The really big issues are all these threats that we face. What do you say to someone that perhaps doesn't see the significance of these issues as being central to Israel, Israeli society, and the relationship with American Jews?
Okay, two responses. One, if it was one or the other, I don't think any of us who are concerned about this issue for one moment would say that these things should come at the expense of Israel's security. In other words, if we were debating whether to spend X billions of shekels on more F-16 fighter jets or building a Western Wall, I know what the answer would be. This is not something that costs. It's not that one, and the people who take care of the army and the tunnels are not the same people as the rabbis or those sitting in yeshivot who are concerned with the Kotel. So this is not an either or. It's not that we're putting this priority above another priority. It's completely different people. It's completely different issues, and there's no competition over budget whatsoever. Even if you would say not security, if you were to tell me that it's a matter of are we going to invest more in education, are we going to invest more in socioeconomically deprived areas for this issue, my answer would be different. But that's not what we're talking about. Our concern is not the amount of money that's invested in the Kotel. Our concern is the access. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, even if we are concerned about security, I am sure that Jews around the world recognize the importance that they have, the role that they have, being allies of Israel, supporters of Israel, combating campaigns for delegitimization, combating campaigns of BDS, lobbying in support of Israel, and so on and so forth. The Jewish people is a strategic asset of the state of Israel for its security. Those are terms that Netanyahu and his predecessors have used over and over again. If that's the case, then by not making progress on these areas of the Kotel and conversion, we risk alienating an entire huge segments of the Jewish population around the world, in particularly a younger generation. How are we going to explain to liberal college students that if their kind of Judaism, that their rabbis can't convert, can't marry, can't perform burials, and so on and so forth in Israel, then it's not that much of a stretch for them to say, well, if they're not letting the rabbis do it, I can only imagine how they're treating the Palestinians. The Palestinians must have a case. Look how they're treating us. Look how they're treating us. What are they doing to them? So in terms just of Israel's strategic interests, it's crucial that we resolve these problems so that the vast majority of world Jewry, which is not Orthodox and certainly not ultra-Orthodox, will be able to feel an identification with, a commitment to, a sense of belonging to this Jewish state, again, that we keep touting as the Jewish state of the entire Jewish people.
Absolutely. And I think, you mentioned Minister Hanegbi's remarks, and he also spoke about Netanyahu and said that there really is goodwill to try and advance this issue and reach a compromise. It seems to me that a lot of it just comes back to that power struggle between the ultra-Orthodox in the Israeli government and how much that impacts so much of Israeli society. And it's a very tricky thing to understand when you're not living there, but it's a very real issue.
Absolutely, and I think I just want to end by saying that again, the Jewish Agency in particular, the streams, and I'm well connected to them, very, very much want this dialogue to begin now on both issues. We're eager for that to happen. We will go into that dialogue with a great sense of goodwill. I would say we go in with more goodwill perhaps than with optimism, but with a real intention of solving this problem, of resolving these issues. We're not looking for conflict. We're not looking for headlines. We're looking for real solutions that will indeed, as I said before, allow this 50th year of the celebration of the unification of Jerusalem also to be a year of the unity of the Jewish people. We're just concluding, celebrating a year of 120 years since the first Zionist Congress. November 2nd, tomorrow, the next day, is a 100th year anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. It was in that declaration that the British recognized the right of the Jewish people to a homeland of its own. Again, we want to celebrate that. We want the entire Jewish people to celebrate that. We're beginning now the celebrations building up to 70 years of Israel's independence, and we all need to do our utmost to make sure that those celebrations, that these historical events are things that can be embraced by the entirety of the Jewish people.
Absolutely, David. And as you said so well, and as Minister Hanegbi conveyed yesterday, it seems that the unity of the Jewish people really is the issue and is of the utmost importance. And I hope that the goodwill on all sides is enough to advance this issue forward. And I hope we can check back with you again and that you have some progress to report to us at that time.
Thank you. Amen. And I would like to end with that optimistic note.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, and very best of luck on your continued efforts and that of Chairman Natan Sharansky and of all those who are working towards this goal. B'atzlacha, and thank you. Toda.
Thank you. Okay. Good night.
David Breakstone is Deputy Chairman of the Jewish Agency. He was speaking with us tonight from Jerusalem during the Jewish Agency Board of Governors meetings taking place in Israel this week about the ongoing issue of creating a pluralistic prayer section at the Western Wall. And we thank him very much for his time today and talking to us here on JBS. And thank you, as always, to our Director Sloan Copeland, JBS Associate Director Dara Golub, editors Jonathan McDevitt and Cordelia Saporin, and producer Carol Lilienthal. I'm Teisha Bader with this edition of In the News.